Hi, I'm Alexandria Ingham from Hidden Remote. How are
Hi, Alexandria. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
you both? You too. So I'll jump straight in with just what were the conversations like to bring this series to life?
Sure. So we started off after a meeting with Seth and we decided I'll do this together. Initially, we were talking about making Ted as a multi-camera, like a traditional sitcom, almost like a play, like Cheers or All in the Family. So that was the initial discussion of like what that would look like, sort of the technical challenges of that, and also just the characters that might be involved. And slowly over the course of some conversations with him, it became the show that you see now, which is a single camera comedy, which is something that we're actually more used to making anyway in recent years. So that's some of the initial conversations.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. I mean, Seth was he was driving this from the beginning, and I think we were lucky that he wrote the pilot, and when we read the pilot for the first time, we really like, oh, this is real. This is a real show, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, that was actually a relief getting that pilot script sent to us because we had signed on to it. We weren't sure how tonally the show was going to make the leap from film to TV. And by the time I was on page 2 of the script, I was laughing and relieved, and I probably texted him like immediately with like the first hilarious joke that like this thing, oh wow, you've really captured that, and we were excited to be a part of it.
So why a prequel series? Why not continue the story on from the movies?
Yeah, some of that decision was made independent of us because by the time we were meeting with Seth, I think he had made that decision. But we have discussed it with him, and I mean, part of it is that like you're not beholden to the movie, and you can just explore these characters sort of independent of like things that were established. Also, he was really inspired by like All in the Family and those family comedies, and it just seemed like a natural way to like it seemed like a missing period in the friendship of these two guys that could be explored and that was sort of ripe for exploration.
Yeah, and we've seen John as an adult and Ted as his friend as an adult, and so going back in time allowed us to see what they were like as teenagers, and also to explore John's family more thoroughly because that's not something that's in the movies.
Part of what you do to that process is explore all those different avenues and see if stories start popping up. And if they start popping up, you're onto something. And if they don't, you abandon it. So part of it is just a somewhat, not super fun process of just finding out what doesn't work so that you eventually land on what does.
I mean, you've got all these like potential storylines come out. You've got the coming of age storyline. You've got Ted figuring out what he's going to do next. What sort of message did you want to convey to the people watching it behind all these storylines?
Yeah.
Sure. I think at the end of the day, the message we want to convey is John and Ted are friends, and that all these things you go through, as horrible or as great as they might be, are better when you have someone to go through them with, and when you have a good friend. So I think basically that friendship is the core message of the show.
Yeah, yeah. A writer's room is often a room full of people who had, if who struggled through their teenage years, and so the fantasy of thinking like, what would that struggle have been like with this crazy best friend who says all sorts of crazy things and has all sorts of horrible advice for you? What might that have been like? Was a fun thing to explore and discuss. And I think you talked about it a little bit there when you said, I'm not sure if you used this word exactly, but the show is a series of firsts, right? You sort of, at that age, everything is new, everything is a first, and that's a great engine for telling situation comedy stories.
So I will say Blair is my favorite. Um, she
Yeah.
brings this grounded element to the story. So why did you
Mhm.
find her character was so important to bring in
Yeah,
around?
I'm not surprised to hear that because in sort of anticipating questions that I might get today, I thought like, oh, if someone asked me like, who's my favorite character or who do I relate to most, I would say Blair. I feel like I'm And I think a lot of the writers would feel the same way. I think she really balances out Ted's character in a way that's necessary, especially today. But at the same time, she's not a scold. Like George is able to like bring a tone to it that is still fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, when we're writing these jokes that you're not sure how you're going to get away with today, having Blair there to provide a counterpoint was invaluable.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for people to see this, but that is
Oh,
all I have time for today.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.